All right, thank you very much, everyone, for their patience and joining us today with myself, Michael McKean from CDI Technologies, and I am joined with David Bradley from Microsoft Education, and today we're going to talk about modern management with Microsoft. Just a quick intro into CDI Technologies. For those of you that may not be aware, we have been in the education space and growing as an organization for over 35 years. And we've understood the growing challenges faced by educators. And our primary purpose is to provide classroom-ready ecosystems and support technologies that connect students to love of learning. So our three primary principles are to connect with best-in-class devices, deploy, making device management easy, and inspire students with the best tools, apps, and software. We have served, in the 35 years we've been in business, we served 10,000 schools and are supporting currently over 2 million devices in the education space, and rated 8.6 out of 10 on Trustpilot and 94% satisfaction rate. Now I'm going to turn things over to David Bradley from Microsoft.
Thanks very much, Michael, and good morning, good afternoon, everybody, to wherever you are in the United States. Thanks for the introduction. I'm absolutely delighted to be here to talk to you about one aspect of Microsoft's education strategy, and that's about what we do around our modern device management story, about how quick, easy, safe, and secure it is just to get up and managing, deploying, and enrolling those devices in your school networks. I'm delighted to be here with our pals from CDI as well, and thanks for that introduction, Michael. And without any further ado, let's dive into the content. So before we get into the modern management story itself, I wanted to take a couple of moments just to reiterate just exactly what Microsoft's value proposition, what our mission statement is really within the education business. And it's really lofty, it's really high, and it's really deep. And that's about empowering the students and the teachers of today to create the world of tomorrow. And we do that based around three pillars. We talk about better learning outcomes, which is really all about preparing students for the workplace. What happens when a student leaves your K-12 establishment? There's a huge story behind each one of these three pillars. I'm not going to go into all three of them because we're going to be talking about modern management, but just to touch on what we mean, a few things that we mean by in the better learning outcomes pillar. We're really talking about increasing language and reading skills, particularly literacy, particularly the work we do with free to download tools like learning tools for OneNote, which just has a profoundly positive impact on children impacted with dyslexia. Any of the 2.5 million children with dyslexia currently in the US K-12 space, and just what a positive impact something like as simple as learning tools can have on that, not only dyslexia, but dysgraphia, dyscalculia, et cetera, just making sure that students are able to be their best on their own terms. Secondly, we talk about helping develop those coding skills and close that skills gap within computer science. Any one of those 2.4 million jobs in the US that went begging last year because the graduates coming out of schools weren't prepared enough to take those jobs. So we're trying very hard with our Minecraft Education Edition product to help to close that gap. We also talk about transforming classroom time for the teachers on the teacher side of the equation by enabling them to maximize the time that they have in the classroom to do that one thing that we want teachers to be doing, which is inspiring those students to be their best, helping them stay organized, helping them create and share content, taking the tech out of the tech ed, if you like. I'm sure we've all heard that phrase before, and spending more time doing what they should be doing, which is, wrapping those nurturing arms around those kids and helping them to be the best they can and preparing them for the workplace. But it's really this bottom pillar around devices and manageable devices that we're going to talk about today. I'm not going to spend too much time on the affordable side of the device equation. I know that Michael and the guys and girls from CDI can have that conversation if they haven't had that conversation with you before. It's just how affordable, but not only affordable, how affordable and performant those devices are in that lower end, that opening price point, that, you know, the first step on the rung, if you like, of devices, of Windows devices that are available to education, starting literally around the $200 mark or around $300 US for a 360-degree ruggedized device with pen and touch and digital ink. It's really pretty remarkable. But what we're going to talk about today is the management side of things and what modern management means to Microsoft and how we can help you guys out there in the field, in your schools and in your districts to actually, you know, quickly, safely enroll and manage those devices in your technology setups. Just a little bit of history first before we get into the meat of things, and I'm sure that if anybody's involved on the networking side within a school district, I don't really need to spend too much time on this, but I do want you to know we recognize just exactly what a challenge you have out there in terms of managing devices. On the device side of things itself, we have different devices, whether they be Windows devices and different versions of Windows, whether it be Chromebooks and different versions of Google's Chromebook setup, or whether it's Apple, whether it's iOS, macOS, different versions of this. It's pretty complex. Then when you add on top of that the application picture, whether they be legacy applications that may even have been done in-house, whether they're Win32 applications, whether they're Apple applications or web apps and the like, that in of itself too is extremely complex. And when you overlay those the complex device picture and the complex application picture on top of each other, it's exponentially more difficult. And we also understand that the resources in most school districts these days are pretty challenged and really challenged to be doing a lot more with a lot less, whether that be a lot less in terms of resources and funding, or whether it's actually just boots on the ground. You know, so what we've got to really do is make this very, very simple to use, very, very accessible, and also something that speaks to the deployment and usage scenarios that are currently and that are also starting to develop in schools around the country around shared carts, whether you're moving to one-to-one, whether you embrace a bring your own device type of approach, or a bit of everything. It's really a complex picture, and we need to make that extremely easy to use, extremely easy to get, and extremely cost effective to be able to deploy. So enter Intune for Education. This is a product that it's kind of hard to believe that we introduced this product over a year ago now, and to pretty good reception, and it's great to see that it's really starting to pick up and resonate with our customers. The interesting things, and I'm going to take you live into a demonstration of Intune for Education, if the interwebs gods are willing. But just to position this for you and some of the thinking behind the design before we actually get into it itself, is we're really proud of the fact that this product was designed specifically for education, designed with education needs and preferences in mind. No, this isn't available to, or we don't sell this product or make it available in our enterprise business or our small business business. This is specifically for education. That means we can focus in, laser with a pinpoint accuracy into the types of things, the types of setups, scenarios, groups, requirements, policies, etc., that our education customers around the world have told us that they need. What that means is we can be extremely efficient, we can be extremely quick, we can be extremely crisp and uncluttered in terms of giving your people access to the types of things they need to be enrolling, deploying, and setting up devices and managing devices within an education scenario. We want it to be very, very fast and streamlined in terms of enrolling devices. And really, if I was to encapsulate all of these bullet points down here, I would say we want to make it extremely quick and extremely efficient and simple to get to managing your devices in your school setup as soon as we possibly can. We think we've done a pretty decent job in doing that. It's also extremely important for us that Intune for Education just sits seamlessly within your setup that you have already, in terms of talking with an LMS, in terms of talking with your student information system, wherever that may come from. And we think we've done a pretty good job at making sure that Intune for Education just sits very, very naturally in your existing environment, but also that it'll be able to scale with your environment too. And we're going to talk about that as we move through the demonstration. You'll see just how the types of devices that Intune can manage straight out of the box, the types of applications that it can recognize, how easy and fast it is to manage, enroll, and deploy devices. And last but by no means least, we want to make it very, very easy for you to get. So we'll talk about just exactly how we do that in a second. So without any further ado, I'm going to take my life into my hands, and I'm going to take you in live and kicking into my my own Intune for Education demo tenant. This is exactly what a customer like yourselves would see if when you buy the product and you first load it. This is a cloud-based console, so it's just working in a browser. And you can see here we've got Welcome for Intune for Education. And in terms of, you think about all the time as we go through the demonstration, what the point is that I stressed a little bit earlier about trying to be quick and easy and fast and effective in terms of getting out and managing and deploying devices as soon as possible. That's kind of the overarching design goal behind everything that we're doing here, and that starts right at this welcome screen. You'll see we're going to do three things here. We're going to choose some groups to set up, we're going to choose some apps to install, and we're going to choose some group settings. In the interests of full transparency, the first time you would load this and use this, you'll see a fourth step in this. So it won't be a three-step process, it'll be a four-step process. I've already done that just in the interests of time. And what I've done is I've already downloaded from the Windows Store for Education a free application that's called School Data Sync. I've run School Data Sync against my tenant's student information system, and I've basically taken all of the information from my SIS and I've converted that into a format that Intune for Education and Office 365 can understand. So, you know, again, just trying to be super transparent. I've done that. That's just, it's a couple of 3 minutes in terms of making that conversion, and then we're up to getting stuck into actually enrolling and managing devices. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Get Started. And you can see here, just to reiterate, we're going to choose groups, choose apps, choose settings, and then we'll review what we've done before we actually get into managing the devices ourselves. So at this point, we want to introduce the concept of groups. We're going to choose some groups. We recognize that it's extremely important, based on feedback that we've had from yourselves, our customers, to make sure that we're able to very, very easily and readily and quickly establish this concept of groups. What do I mean by a group? Well, simply put, we recognize that different devices based on different usage scenarios and users are going to need different applications, different policies, different permissions, different access rights. So we set that up extremely quickly. So all of your administrators can have one potential build and policy set and a set of access rights. You probably don't want your kindergarten kids having exactly the same types of access rights than your faculty and staff. Maybe you want to set things up by grade. Maybe you want to set them up by class, your STEM, your STEAM students, etc. So we bring the idea of groups into the mix extremely quickly. But just for in the interest of time and simplicity, I'm just going to make any choices we subsequently make as we step through the wizard here available to all devices. So I'll hit Next. Next takes us into the set of Intune, the part of Intune for Education, rather, where we set up our applications. Now you can see here as I scroll up and down, I've got some Microsoft Store applications. It's inviting me to put in the Office desktop applications if you want. I might not choose to do that if I have a lowly resourced device, maybe like a 464 device. Maybe I want to run those things from the cloud. But choosing an application is literally as simple or as difficult as clicking and unclicking. You can see I've got the store apps here. As I go up to the top and hit this web apps blade, you can see I have a number of web applications here. I might want to add Edmodo in there too, so I can just select that, or deselect CodeMonkey. At this point, it's interesting to note, and I want to make sure I stress that if I had any iOS application, any iOS devices, iPad in here, Intune for Education right out of the gate manages iPad as well. I'll talk about what we do in terms of cross-platform support as we get to a little bit later on in the demonstration. But I just wanted to highlight now that if we had any iOS applications, they would appear up here as a blade. So we'd see iOS applications, web apps, and Windows apps. And it just so happens that in my particular demo tenant, I haven't brought any iPad devices in there. And maybe I should, to be a little bit more efficient and demonstrate a little bit better. But I wanted to point out that that would appear in here right now if I had any iPads in my setup. Next, let's choose our settings. So as I mentioned at the outset, one of the things that we wanted to do extremely quickly in the process is make this most usable to our education customers, which are your good selves. To that end, we understood the top kind of 30 or 40 policy choices that we heard from our customers around the world, and we threw those out right at this in this early setup wizard. Why? To put this policy choices and decisions right in front of you as soon as we possibly can to get you up and running, managing, and deploying devices as soon as you can. So for example, in the user experience blade, I currently have the camera blocked. That might be a good idea for my lower grades. I might want to unblock removable storage, or maybe, you know what, if we get the young kids coming in with a USB drive that's of questionable origin, maybe I don't want to do that. So you can see very, very easily, these are just yes, no, on, off, blocked, not blocked type of suggestions that go around user experience, the browser, enrollment controls, applications, and accounts and sign-ins. Do I want the kids to be able to, change the time and date of the device? Probably not. How do I want to handle internet sharing? How do I want to manage cookies? All of these kind of things. So that's not to say that you can't get extremely granular with this, and I'll show you what I mean by that a little bit farther on in the demonstration. But what we want to do is we want to give you the policies that we've heard from you, our customers, that you guys use most often, put those front and center to get you up and running and managing these devices most efficiently and above all else quickly. So then I'm just going to hit save, and you can see here I'm in the review point, and it's really the only changes I've done is I've added the Edmodo application. So I'll hit OK, and I'm done. That's it. I've just gone through and set up my Intune for Education setup here. I can go back now and set up some more groups should I want to do that. If I want to add all my faculty and staff into a particular group, if I want to add my remedial readers or my ESL children into a group, or science lessons or grades, periods, etc., I can set up those more groups. Or if I'm all done, I can click on all done, and that'll take me into my dashboard. The dashboard, this is kind of the hub for where I would use Intune for Education most often. You can see I've got school data sync running here. I can go back to the Express configurator. I can see my applications, manage my devices. This is totally customizable as well. By the way, I can put clocks and Wi-Fi monitors and reports and any number of things down here and put that onto my dashboard so it reflects my environment, it reflects me, and reflects how I choose to work. Now, each of the blades and the menu options over here on the left-hand side, I'm not going to step through each of those individually, purely and simply because we don't have time to do that. But a lot of them are very, very interlinked. So from groups, I can get device information. From applications, I can get user information. All of these things are kind of cyclical and can lead to each other. So I'm just going to step through a few of them to give you a little idea of what we're doing here and the type of functionality this provides. So you can see in my enormously expansive tenant, I've actually got 4 devices. I can click on a device, and you'll see down here I get that device details. This just happens to be a Lenovo, and I just happen to know that the 81M9 is the new 300E device, which is one of those affordable devices that I was talking about that provides pen and ink support, and actually support for a number 2 pencil in the absence of absence of the digital pen, which is kind of unique. I can see the OS version, I can see Wi-Fi MAC addresses, etc., and I can also perform a lot of tasks from this pen. If I've had a problem syncing a device, maybe an application hasn't landed or a policy hasn't landed, I can instead of syncing every single device, I can go to that troublesome device and sync and force a manual sync. I can restart, I can rename the device. That might not be a bad idea, given that 81M9 doesn't really mean an awful lot, I suppose, if you don't work for Lenovo. So I can rename the device. I can even, if I'm having a lot of problems with the device, which unfortunately happens from time to time, I can perform a full factory reset and turn that to an out-of-box, brand spanking new type of format, type of status here by hitting factory reset, or even just take the device out of my management scenario if I choose to do that. But let's go to the device details page, and I can find out a little bit more about this this particular device. And as that just loads, this will also give me an insight. You can see here, insight as to who it was last checked out by, or in a one-to-one scenario, who the student is, or the teacher or faculty or staff that actually has the rights to this device. So I can see my device is enrolled. I can see what groups it's a member of. Has the device does it have any actions or pending actions? Where did this one doesn't? So that's good. My Windows Defender status is clean, which is also good as well. And then if I touch on and click on the user, in this case, Alex Wilbur, I'll get a picture of the applications and settings that are associated with device. So you can see what's going on here. I chose class policy recently, and you can see the status not yet applied. What that means is, since making that change to this device, I just haven't turned it on and synced it with my Intune for Education tenant. So it's not yet applied. I'm not sure if the eagle-eyed amongst you noticed, but when we were going through the application set of all devices, when I was running through the setup wizard, I deselected CodeMonkey. So guess what? There's a pending uninstall. So the next time I switch on that device and I connect it to my tenant, a number of things are going to happen. CodeMonkey is going to be uninstalled. Anything not yet applied, like this as well, Minecraft Education Edition, although I've got it twice, I'm not sure why I've done that. But there's a couple of uninstalls, there's a couple of not yet implieds, there's a couple of pendings, which is just waiting for that next handshake, that next sync with the device, where all of these things will be actioned, either deleted, installed, or modified. Moving on just very, very briefly to applications, I can get a full picture of my application set here. I can see what's going on with, for example, Minecraft Education Edition. I've got 4 installs. What groups did I put the installation into? I put it into all of my my all devices group. I can see my usernames and all of my devices in here that I've put Minecraft Education Edition into. So you can see extremely comprehensive, extremely simple, extremely clean and quick and crisp in terms of setting up my Intune for Education management system, but also once I'm in the environment itself, just exactly the types of things I can do. I talked about cross-platform support, and again, if there are any eagle-eyed amongst you, you might notice that I've got a little blade down here that says Intune. Well, Microsoft believes, unlike some of our competitors, that it's far more efficient to be able to manage more from a single pane of glass than require a specific application for each type of device that I'm managing. And with that in mind, Intune for Education will manage Windows 10 devices, including Windows 10 in S mode or Windows 10 S. It'll manage iOS devices or iPad. It'll also manage Mac OS and Android devices right out of the box. And we achieve that by delivering a full copy of the enterprise version of Intune whenever you purchase and acquire and install and use Intune for Education. So I hope that's not super confusing. Think of Intune for Education for your Windows 10, Windows 10S, and iPad applications, but within that, we'll give you Intune as well, which enables you to manage any Mac devices, any Mac OS devices, MacBooks, MacBook Airs, iMac, etc., as well as your Android devices. And you do that from this, which is the full enterprise version of Intune. So with that in mind, let's flip back to the presentation and carry on. So we were trying to address the major needs of you, our education customers, and you know, let's revisit those needs and kind of take a stab at how we did. First and foremost, we heard that management needs to be easy to use and set up. I hope you'll agree based on what you saw. I mean, I'm definitely not a technophile, but at the same time, I'm not an IT administrator. And if I can set that up and I can run that, I think you can do that too. Whether you've got a dedicated technical department or whether you've got one of your faculty or staff subbing as the pseudo tech person, this is not difficult to do. And I hope I've demonstrated that and just shown you how easy it is to just get up and running. We want to make it very, very quick and easy to set up and enroll devices. And I can do this in 3 ways. And in actual fact, even though you didn't actually see me do this because I've done this over a period of time, when I've added devices in a number of different ways. I've added them manually. And what I mean by that is I've literally gone through the out-of-box experience of a device, and I've typed in my credentials, my username, and my password, and I've waited for that to sync to the Azure Active Directory in the cloud. That does its handshaking, it brings me on board, it downloads my policies and my application set that you saw me set up when I went through the Intune for Education setup. I mean, and that's okay, that's a way to do it. But if you're doing a fairly sizable deployment running into hundreds, tens, hundreds, scores, thousands, however many, that can get a little bit arduous. We also have another free application that facilitates that called Setup School PC. That's an application, again, within the Windows Store for Education that you can download onto the administrator's desktop or whoever's acting as administrator. And literally, by simply placing an empty USB stick into one of the USB drives on the device, I can walk through a 3-step wizard that ties into my Intune for Education system and creates an executable about my policy choices, my application settings, and my preferences, and then simply taking that out and putting that into the device as it boots from brand new or as it boots from a factory reset. At that point in the boot process that says, hey, you know, what type of keyboard are you using? Are you using an English keyboard, or where are you in the United States? We'll set your time zone. Simply by putting the USB stick into the device at that point, that can automate or partially automate the boot process. And if you think, well, okay, putting in and putting out a device, you know, a USB device into a bunch of devices, that's kind of timely. I'm really excited to share with you that we very recently had a customer in Colorado who successfully enrolled and deployed 600 devices in an 8-hour school day using 30 of these USB sticks that they made. Literally just by popping the device in at the right time at the out-of-box experience. So 600 devices in a day is not out of the realms of possibility just by using that free application and that semi-automated process. Or you can go fully automated if you have an autopilot set up where you've worked with your device OEM supplier and a reseller partner like CDI, where you can basically match the credentials of your user base with what's termed the hash information, so some of the innards, some of the guts of the devices that you're using, and those things get married in the cloud from day one. So literally all you need to do is open that device, enter your credentials, and boom, you're off to the races in terms of you know, who you are in your hierarchy will determine what policy settings, what applications, what preferences you get. So the other thing is we want to make it extremely quick to get very quick access to the most commonly used policies that we understand are used in the education space. And we think we did a pretty decent job based on that too. And I also talked about the ability right from the outset to recognize different groups with different policy requirements and different application sets based on usage scenario. And we think we did an okay job there too. So we think we got the management being easy to set up and use down to a T, right to the point where our product folks have come out with a fairly gutsy statement, if I might say, that we think you can set up a free trial and set up a classroom in under an hour. And what I mean by that is literally, you can see the 6 steps here, and I'll make sure you guys, anybody wants a copy of this slide and the appropriate links, and don't worry about scribbling down URLs and AKAs and tiny URLs and things like this. We'll make sure you get all of the relevant information as soon as we're done here. But from setting up Office 365, setting up that tenant, running school data sync as I'd done before, all the way through the Intune process, the Intune for Education process in terms of setting up the tenant and then deploying devices, and then literally logging in and using. So we think you can set up very, very easily a classroom, so roughly 30 devices from scratch, using a trial, a 90-day trial that we can provide to you in under an hour. So we think that's pretty good in terms of that making it fast and efficient and safe to get up to and running with Intune for Education. The second thing, I'm sorry,
David, it's Michael here. Sorry for interrupting you.
Sure.
I have quite a long list of questions, and I wanted to make sure that we did try to answer as many questions as possible. I apologize.
We're going to have some time at the end to do that, Michael. I'll make sure we have time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Good that we're getting a lot of questions. I love that. So the second thing is, this has got to scale to my IT needs, and it's got to work with the applications my users want. Again, Microsoft being as open as we possibly can be, right out of the gate, we can manage in terms of devices and scaling to the IT needs, recognizing the heterogeneous nature of most school environments out there. Very few are solely Windows, very few are solely Chrome, very few are solely Apple. It's a mix of everything. It's there's a real mix of platforms and operating systems out there. And right out of the gate, we'll manage Windows devices, we'll manage iOS, we'll manage macOS, we'll manage Android. The only thing that we can't manage is we can't manage Chromebook, and the only reason we can't manage Chromebook is Google didn't want to play. And again, just harking back to that point of, we think it's much more efficient and a better use of time and skill set to be able to manage as many devices from a single pane of glass and a single application. We think that's most efficient, and we've done as good a job as we can in bringing that management of right across platform, right out of the box, the moment you start. In terms of applications, Windows applications, web applications, legacy applications, traditional Win32 applications, including things like learning tools for OneNote. Learning tools for OneNote isn't actually an application. It's a free download that you can get from a number of sites. Like, if you go to Microsoft.com and select on it, but it's not actually an application. Well, Intune for Education will enable you very, very easily to bring in that application file, bring in that file and wrap it up in a wrapper and package it, if you like, as an MSI, a Microsoft installer package, and deploy that right around the whole of your tenant or whoever you choose to get that application. So we think we've done that scalability job as well as we can, and also the application support as well as we can. And last but by no means least, it's got to be easy to get. And we're going to spend a whole slide on showing you just how easy it is to get and the different the different options you have in terms of being able to get Intune for Education. So I'm going to skip on that one for now, and because we're going to cover that very soon. But to summarize around Intune for Education and that, what we're trying to do and what we think we've done a pretty good job, and I hope you agree that we've done a pretty good job, is providing that entire life cycle for your device, from enrollment, whether you choose fully automatic with autopilot, whether you choose fully manual or semi-automatic with the Setup School PC application. We've got the enrollment side of things taken care of. Provisioning, whether it's making those policy choices, deploying applications, setting settings, choosing groups, etc. in terms of your provisioning, and then that day-to-day management around apps and settings and policies, whether it's reporting, performing remote tasks and all of the good stuff that goes around with device management. And last but by no means least, either retire or reuse. Student leaves, repurpose the device. Student leaves, repurpose that license. So we think we've done hopefully done a pretty good job with that too. So as we approach the end of the official part of the slides, I think we've got another sort of roughly 5 minutes or so, and then we can get into some Q&A, which I'm looking forward to. You're asking, well, this is great. Well, how do I get Intune for Education? Well, there's a number of ways you can do it, and I want to get over the most obvious one quickly, and then talk about something that may be new to you. First and foremost, the easiest way to get Intune for Education, get your devices into that modern management scenario, is simply extend your current volume license agreement to include Intune for Education. You can include that management thing just by adding that to your volume license agreement. That isn't what I wanted to talk about specifically here. I wanted to talk about if you didn't have the scenario where you didn't necessarily have a volume license agreement and you were just buying devices ad hoc and you had some existing devices and you're going to buy some new devices from CDI, some Windows 10 devices, and you don't necessarily have anything prescribed around your management scenario. What do? Well, enter a product called Microsoft 365 A1, or you might hear it referred to as M365 A1. This is a very unique type of license, which is more akin to a boxed product than a volume license agreement. This is not a per user license. This is a per device license. This is a one-off license that you can purchase to add with new devices outside the realms of a Microsoft volume license agreement. So if anybody kind of clouds over it, the idea of E3 or A5 or enterprise this, or do I have upgrade rights for that, and you're just buying devices and you want to bring those into a modern management type of scheme, M365 A1 with any devices that you buy, and you need one of these licenses for any of the new devices you may buy, if this is the way you choose to do that, is the way to go. The license itself will give you three things. This is incredibly value-driven license that, as I said before, and I want to stress this, goes with the device. So ideal for a shared cart scenario. This doesn't go with a per user. This goes per device. So multiple devices in a cart, multiple users, different profiles. This is an ideal license for that. M365 A1 not only comes with Intune for Education to bring those devices under a modern cloud management scenario, but it also comes with the Office 365 web applications. So you have a productivity slant on things. And more importantly, and most interestingly, it comes with the ability to perform Windows 10 Pro upgrades. So you may be thinking, well, okay, David, that sounds all well and good, but if I buy, let's think of a number, 207 brand new Windows 10 devices from CDI, aren't I going to be getting those with Windows 10 already? The answer is yes, you are. However, you may also have some devices within your setup, your existing setup, that aren't running Windows 10 Pro and maybe aren't being managed in a modern cloud scenario. The ability you have with M365 A1 is to purchase additional licenses and bring into the modern management scenario the existing devices that you currently have. And where the upgrade comes in is if any of those devices are running Windows 7 Pro, Windows 8 Pro, or Windows 8.1 Pro, you can use this license to bring that device up to Windows 10 Professional. So not only do you get 6 years of the life of the device of cloud management in a one-time payment, you also get the ability to bring up to Windows 10 Professional any devices that are running Windows 7 or Windows 8 Pro that are already in your environment. So what are customers saying about what we've got and what we've done? The feedback has been jaw-dropping. We've got people changing from competitive environments back into the Microsoft fold purely and simply about the strides we've made in device management, the MDM solution, and what Intune for Education brings. Whether it's reducing deployment time, whether it's the customization, whether it's security, these are the types of things that we're hearing over and over again in customers, both new and converting customers who might have had a different management solution, who might have a different platform running on the device, are coming and using Intune for Education based on the benefit it brings. An interesting white paper that also I stumbled upon a few months ago is this. You can see over on the right-hand side of the screen here, the state of modern device deployment in education. This is an independent third-party study that's done that basically ends up being a discussion around Google's Chrome console and how it manages Google Chromebooks, Intune for Education and what it does with Windows devices. And it's not commissioned by Google. It wasn't commissioned by Microsoft. And paints a pretty interesting picture. And whilst it doesn't come out and say, hey, this one's the winner, it's very clear. It's like, Google had a couple of years head start in terms of cloud device management, and they do this well, and they do this well. But we really loved how Intune for Education did this and this and this. So it kind of adds up the pros and cons of both. but makes an extremely interesting statement in the summary at the end, which is basically, with the strides that Microsoft has made in terms of making affordable, performant devices very cost effective right now, and the introduction of Intune for Education, why would you give a student well, I think the term was a de-featured device like a Chromebook in the education? Why wouldn't you give them a PC where they can work online or offline, where it supports everything with a USB, where they can take their stuff with them, where it's a better performance in terms of networking bandwidth and all this kind of thing? But anyway, I urge you to have a look for that and download that guy, and because it's pretty interesting reading from an independent third party. So in terms of next steps, talk to your CDI account manager about Microsoft 365 A1, or the alternatives in terms of adding to your volume licensing. You can take that free tour and set up your free 90-day trial. Again, don't worry if you don't have time to scribble down this URL. We'll make sure to everybody that's on the call, we send you a full list of all of the links and URLs and things like this with a description, so you can actually go in and investigate for yourselves, or better still, chat with your CDI account manager. And with that, that's the end of the official part of the webinar. Thank you so much for your time and attention. It's always a pleasure to work with our CDI colleagues, and it was a pleasure to talk to you, even though I can't see any of you, and take you through just one aspect of Microsoft's mission in education about enabling students of today to create the world of tomorrow. And look for the next webinar in the series that we're going to be doing, where maybe we'll talk about better learning outcomes and delve into that a little bit more, or look upon the transforming classroom time, and maybe taking the application set around what we can do for teachers and how we can better serve teachers and enable them to spend more time with their students. So with that, thank you very much. And let's see, Michael, do you want to go through some of the questions?
Yes, of course. Thank you, David. Thank you very much for today's webinar. I will start with the first question that came in, which was, will there ever be support by third-party applications such as Google Chrome or Firefox?
Third-party applications, you mean support? I'm not sure I understand the question. Support for when you say an application, do you mean for the browser?
Possibly. That's all I see.
If to whoever asked that question, if the question is, can I run Intune for Education on the Chrome browser? Absolutely. It's you choose browser of your choice, and it's simply a web app. So yeah, you get a URL and you hit that URL, and it will launch in whatever browser you choose to use. And by the way, it behooves me right now just to give a quick plug. If any of you are fancy living out on the edge, and of course I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek here, but I'm sure you all saw in the press very recently that Microsoft has just announced that we're moving the Edge browser to run on the Chromium engine. And what that means in layman's terms is that means we're going to run the Edge, make the Edge browser work on exactly the same engine that the Chrome browser works on. So, if you're a hardcore Chrome fan and you want a treat, go and do a search on and join the beta program for Edge running on the Chromium engine, which is actually my default browser right now because it is jaw-droppingly good. But getting back to the questions, sorry for the unashamed plug there, but I couldn't resist. But I hope that answered your question about will Intune for Education's admin console run on a Chrome browser or a Firefox browser? The answer is absolutely yes.
Okay, great. The next question is, where can we get the applications form? Is it only web apps and from the Windows Store?
No, well, as I went through in the slide, and I'm sorry if I skipped over that quickly, you can run web applications, legacy applications, so applications like side-loaded applications that you currently use today, and iOS applications, Android applications, because we provide that cross-platform support and really scale to your IT environment. So you should be, there should be nothing that you can't run on those devices.
Okay, terrific. For the user sync, can it take information from Active Directory? If so, does it recognize groups already created there?
It will indeed. Correct. Yeah, so when you're working in that type of hybrid environment between Active Directory and SCCM, or if you're moving to the more modern type of scenario with an Azure Active Directory, those things will, it's absolutely critical that we make that as painless and as synergistic and seamless in terms of moving and working between those things as possible. So yes.
Terrific. I'm assuming some of these questions may have been answered as they came in a little earlier.
Well, you know what? I tend to go at a pace sometimes. So
No, I just want to make sure I cover them all off and that we don't miss anybody. So can you force us?
Always good to go over them again. That's fine.
That's right. Can you force a sync to multiple devices or just one at a time?
You can force a sync to multiple devices, yes. Unfortunately, my tenant didn't do a really good job because I have 4 devices loaded on there in a tenant of about 30 or 40 people. But yes, you can. You would go to the device blade and you would click multiple devices, and then you can force that sync. Yes, you can.
Terrific. If I have an iPad that's configured to MDM already, do I have to wipe the device in order to join it into an MDM?
I'm not sure why you would want to do that, and I'm not sure if you're talking about potentially having 2 MDM setups managing the device and how that would necessarily work. I would imagine that you're probably just going to have one. If you were going to join that to an Intune for Education setup, you could literally just add in the credentials and password and it would pick it up. In all honesty, I'm not 100% sure if you were trying to manage it with 2 MDM solutions, how that would go. So let me make a note of that. And if somebody could make a note of who asked the question, we'll try and get back to you.
Okay. Terrific. What vendors support Intune Autopilot? I think I hear Lenovo, but what about other vendors?
Dell, Lenovo, and HP. Acer are coming on board to do exactly the same, and I think it's unfortunately the most accurate answer to this at the highest level is all of those vendors. The most accurate answer is have a chat with your OEM of choice, because they may be, well, I say maybe, I know everybody's at kind of a different point in the process in terms of bringing to market and just kind of working it through their own systems. And that's no slam on anybody. It just, different things take different amounts of time with different OEMs, but all of the major OEMs will be supporting Autopilot.
Great. Can you use Intune if you don't have SCCM?
I'm going to be a real nitpicker here. We've got to be a little bit more accurate on the question. Can you use Intune for Education if you don't have SCCM? Absolutely, you can, because you don't need to have any hierarchy or topology on the back end at all, because what you're doing is you're hooking this device up to the Azure Active Directory. But AD and SCCM will work with Azure Active Directory and any implementation that you might have of MDM connected with that. So you should be pretty good on that.
Terrific. If we block the Microsoft Store with Active Directory, can we still push out software?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
All that's happening is you're preventing the folks downstream of admin to be able to access applications from the store, but that's a choice, that's a policy that you have. Actually, on that as well, it might be just an interesting sidetrack just for 30 seconds. One of the things that you can do within the administrator console as well, and folks, I literally only scratched the surface of what you can do. You can actually very, very quickly and easily assign and delegate admin rights. So if I'm, for example, if I'm playing, wearing the hat of the admin for my school district, but I want to deploy and provide access rights, administrator rights to different schools within the district, I can actually do that too. So I can create my own hierarchy of admins who get their own reports and generate their own stuff and what have you, and have those admin rights for within their own networks. Okay,
terrific. Some of these questions I'm going to reach out directly. They seem to be very technical. They may take up a little bit more time.
You're going to embarrass me by giving me the 2 technical ones, because I thought I was doing pretty well by now. But
no, you're doing terrific. I'm thinking more for the reason of time. But
Squirm?
let me just, will Intune be as flexible as group policy was as far as limiting a user's use in Windows, such as if we wanted to disable right-click for certain devices or students?
Wow. The high level answer is yes, you can. I mean, I have access to something in the region of 190 levels of granularity of policy within that within devices and users and apps. Do I know specifically if I can disable right click? I'm afraid I don't. I can certainly try and find out for you, and we can make a note of that question. But you've at the high level, the answer is yes. When you get as granular as, can I disable a mouse button? I'm afraid that's beyond me. I'm not 100% sure of the answer. So let me table that one and get back with you an answer.
Okay, terrific. Are there remote support options available in Intune for Education to support users remotely, similar to SCCM remote support?
Yes, there are.
Okay, terrific.
Just in fact, that was one of the main reasons why our pals down in that I referred to in Colorado, who did the 600 device setup with Setup School PC and the USB kind of semi-automated solution, which is unbelievable. I've been at Microsoft 30 years, folks, and putting that USB stick into a device during the out-of-box experience, I actually didn't believe it. I thought there's no way this could have worked. It took something like 2 minutes, and suddenly there I am looking at my splash screen and saying, "Hey, David, do you want to sign on with your education credentials?" I honestly thought something had gone wrong. I couldn't believe it when I typed in my student name and password, and there's Minecraft, and there's OneNote, and there's the Office web apps, and all this stuff that I'd set up in my tenant. It was pretty impressive, and that all works remotely as well. So yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Okay, terrific. To clarify the apps question, I think we were asking, can we push and remote uninstall apps from other places and control them? Or as you said, side load with legacy. Is that all on us manually?
Well, I mean, when I refer to side loading manually, I'm talking about being able to support legacy applications that the like one-off apps, one-off Windows apps that you're used to using. On the remote side of things, wherever you have access to a browser, as an administrator, you can do all of those things. You can do the things that you first talked about removing applications, changing policy settings, changing groups, creating groups, adding users, deleting users, resetting devices, all of those things. In a browser-based world, you can do that from your phone. You can do that from the airport. You can do that from grandma's house. Yeah, it's absolutely flexible like that.
Okay, great. Do you offer migration tools for MDM for iOS devices? For example, if we migrated from VMware AirWatch to Intune?
That's something that that's not a question that I would answer here. That's more of a sit down, let's have a conversation. Where have you got, and how do we get you from and to? So it's possible. I hate to sound a little bit flaky on it, but it kind of depends. It kind of depends what the scenario is and what have you. But it's definitely possible.
Okay. Is there a setting to stop users from doing factory resets in Intune?
Well, the only person or persons that would have access to that factory reset is an administrator. So if the question, again, trying to interpret the question as best I can, if the question is, could a student start and do a factory reset? Absolutely not. Could an administrator or somebody with delegated administrator rights do a factory reset? Absolutely. That's a very valid thing to do. But could somebody accidentally do a factory reset? Absolutely not. No.
Okay. How can we block students from getting to store with their own accounts? Azure accounts are able to bypass the rule and download apps.
Sorry, read the second part of the question again. I got the first part.
Azure accounts are able to bypass the rule and download apps.
Well, you can set up policy to enable the students to have access, or actually not students. you can set a policy to enable devices belonging to users within groups to either have access to or the ability rather to download store apps or not. That's the choice of the administrator.
Okay. I think we're getting close to the end. Sorry if this question was asked. How many we most closely align Intune devices settings to our group policy, i.e. locking down devices like desktop computers? How may we most closely align Intune device settings to our group policy settings? Example, locking down devices like desktop computers.
Well, I mean, that would be and again, I apologize if I'm not getting the nuance in the question, if there is one. But I mean, you would take an inventory of your group policy settings, and then you would emulate those group policy settings through Intune for Education in terms of securing the device. I mean, we have folks every day, every minute of every day who are changing policy settings, completely locking down device settings, based on whether it's a lower grade or whether it's a device that goes home or, various scenarios. But there's an incredible amount of flexibility to be able to customize what Intune for Education does vis-a-vis managing the devices in your environment. So we're pretty excited about what we've got there.
In David's opinion, what would the 3 best reasons a district would move away from a decent Google platform to Microsoft?
Because Windows devices do a lot more. Windows devices prepare, and the Windows Microsoft ecosystem prepares students for the workplace. We have an IDC summary study back from 2016, polling 75 million jobs in the United States, and what the top 25 things were, top 25 traits of prospective candidates that folks are looking for. And surprisingly enough, as it certainly was to us, but something that we're extremely proud of, being able to use Microsoft Office was number 4. That was the only software product mentioned in the top 25 skill sets of required skills in 75 million jobs, no other product. So Microsoft products and a Microsoft solution prepare students for the workplace. Windows devices just do more, whether it's online, offline, pen, inking, a device to fit every budget, a device to fit every need, whether it's desktops, minis, laptops, convertibles, tablets, 2-in-1s, you name it. And also they behave better on a wireless network. They're a lot easier on a wireless network. When you're editing a video file or an audio file or even a Word document on a Chromebook, at every step of the way, there are regular transfers of that entire document up to the cloud, because the cloud's where all the work's been done. When you buy a Windows device, you've got horsepower under the hood to do all of that. So it's a lot easier on your device. So networking bandwidth, preparing students for the workplace, and the fact that Windows devices just do more. And now you've seen hopefully you've seen and you agree, just how easy and effective modern device management is with Intune for Education.
Okay, last couple of questions. If I happen to miss any of the questions for the people still today live on the webinar, we will reach out to you directly. So can you configure Intune for remote desktop services for remote support to users?
That one, you know what, Michael? I thought I'd done such a good wrap up there because we've gone over time. I thought I was going out with a bang, and then you completely custard pied me here. Folks, with my hand on my heart, I don't know the answer to that question. Please make a note of it. Send it over to me, Michael, with the originator rather, and I'll get her answer. I'm not 100% sure on remote desktop, remote access, and the whole virtualization thing. Albeit, I want to give you an answer because I think I know the answer, but rather than do that and risk being a little bit inaccurate, I'll defer.
Okay. We have another person asking if there are training sessions available.
If you go to education.microsoft.com or microsoft.com/education, or if you go to Intune for Education and just do, you can hit that, put that in your favorite search engine, you'll find online lessons, you'll find online resources. In fact, In terms of getting back to everybody and with a deliverable that was kind enough to join us today, I'll pull together a list of useful links and resources that you can use. But yes, there's stuff out there that you can look at and help increase your knowledge. In fact, the best thing I would recommend you do is take us up on the offer of doing a free 90-day trial. What have you got to lose? You know, that will give you that full stack with Office 365, Intune for education, access to the store, your own tenant to manage so you can bring devices in, take them out, and you can see just how drop-dead efficient, fast, safe, secure, and easy Intune for education is.
Okay, terrific. Now, I got it because I was supposed to launch a poll at the beginning of today's webinar, so my apologies with regards to that. I'm going to take a moment now because we still have a lot of our participants currently on the line. I'm going to launch just a quick poll, hoping that you can all take a few moments and fill it out. And the final question that I received today was, can we receive a recording of this webinar? And the answer is absolutely yes. We can reach out and offer you a recording of this complete webinar. So I just launched the poll. So for those of you that are still with us, if you could take a few moments out of your day and fill out the poll questions. And I want to thank David and the Microsoft team for their time today. And thank you all for joining us.
Absolutely. And Mike, if I could just say for a second, folks, for the 41 of you that are still on, please, please, please answer the questions. This stuff is vitally, vitally important to us to help us get better, to help us better serve you, to help create better products, to help connect with you better, et cetera, et cetera. So please, please, please give us your feedback.
I'm going to leave the poll running for another 3 minutes. Once again, I want to say thank you very much for attending today's webinar. And after the 3 minutes is up, I will close the poll and we will reach out to anyone and everyone that had any direct questions. Myself and the Microsoft team will directly be in touch. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody, and thank you for hosting the CDI.